I do.
Oh, you're not
My
there now?
It's great.
Not yet. It's all right. Nevertheless, I will pursue. Somehow. We'll make it.
Yeah.
Just be a shorter meeting.
She's still up there.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. There. Got it.
We're now live.
Okay, I'd like to call this meeting of the Lake Placid Central School District Board of Education order. Pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome, everyone. And the first order of business is the consent agenda. Recommended action is to approve the items below, which are included in the consent agenda. 6A minutes, 8A donation acceptance, and 8B special education. Do I have a motion?
Yes.
Colleen and Joan?
Was that Colleen Scott then?
I'll second.
Colleen.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
Colleen won.
I'm wondering.
Okay, we have any discussion? Anybody want to pull anything out?
Nope, thought the minutes were fine. I read everything.
Okay, you'll please vote.
Yes, so that's 6 yes.
Okay, 6 yes, so motion passes. Next up is for the good of the cause. Do you have any emails or letters,
We
telegrams?
do not have any letters today.
So how would we know, let me ask you a question, how would we know if someone's watching us via Zoom right now?
So right now, I have changed the way the Zoom is working. And anybody who wants to join us in our meeting has to join us.
I got you.
So then they would become a participant.
And would see
via the
that.
one. Yeah,
Okay, fair enough.
yeah, I do not have any.
Okay, is there anyone present that would like to speak? All right,
Anytime during the day.
moving on to the budget performance report.
Well, hopefully, you don't mind when I move back and forth between budget performance report and the estimated unaudited fund balance. Hopefully, you had a chance to take a look at them, but they kind of go hand in hand in terms of expenses and revenue. So the first is the budget performance report. You'll see year-to-date revenue is for the month, $460,000, down by $406,000. Month to date for expenditures was down by 525. So unfavorable for revenue, but favorable for expenditures. When it comes down to it, when you look at the year to date, we had just under 97% that we have collected thus far compared to 100% from last year. If you're asking the question, why do we not have 100% in at this point? Because the school year is over. It's because we never get our money by the time the school year is over. We still have state aid that will come in. We'll probably still generate revenue for this current year in September. We just got a check towards the end of June, our second installment for our BOCES aid. So state aid is never up to date. And in the end, what we end up doing is we count it as a receivable because we know we're getting it. So as we close out the books in a couple of months, when Sam and Tom are here, talking about the audit, they'll talk about the actuals because we say, here's the additional revenue that we're going to get. We book it as a receivable, therefore it counts. But this is really as of June 30th, so we don't put in, and what you see here is not stuff that hasn't been counted yet. So that's why it's not 100%. But it will be 100% come September once everything is done and the state aid is in.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So the state aid reimbursement we get, is that based upon some formula related to the aggregate assessments within the district?
The state aid is based off of, so they have a bunch of formulas. So it's like our foundation aid, which is kind of a fixed amount. And then we have BOCES aid, and that aid is based off of the services we use through BOCES. And then we have some additional aids that are based off of our student enrollments as well as usage. So state aid is based off of formulas that they have developed.
Exactly.
The taxes, that we generate, property taxes, that comes from our assessed values.
So the state aid formula is not related directly to the aggregate assessments within the district.
Correct.
Taxes, of course, I understand that.
Yes.
Okay, I misunderstood that, well, that's.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
the correlation will only be to the fact that because Lake Placid is considered a strong revenue-based property tax districts, our aid is much less. So when you look at it, our state aid is about that 12 to 14% of our revenue, whereas that 80 to 82% or so is taxes.
But the assessment that we're a wealthy community is driven by the aggregate assessments within the district.
That is
Because,
correct.
I mean, you have properties assessed at $12 million,
Yes.
so it is indirectly related to how we get.
It is, yes. I mean, the formula, right? We don't get more aid because we are a tax-rich district, if you will. Yes.
So the state says, go get it from your taxpayer.
Exactly, yes. So, when you look at it and, we've talked about this in the past, but going forward, when you look at districts like us, where we rely on heavily on the tax assessments, we are constrained with a 2% increase. So next year, when we're generating revenue, we're really going to be capped at about 2.1% once our exclusions are in, and then the state. So as prices are going up 7 to 8%, we're only going to be able to raise our revenue by 2%.
I see it, that's a problem.
It's going to,
Yeah,
yes.
that's a problem.
And I did reach out to my, ASBO as it's called, it's basically the Association for Business Officials, New York ASBO. I actually reached out saying, are you doing anything on their end politically to talk about suspending the tax cap for the districts like us, because we will be in a precarious situation in a couple of years if things don't settle out with inflation. They say, oh yeah, we understand it and we've asked the question, but politically it's not something they want to touch. The governor and the politicians, not ASBO is advocating for it, but politicians don't want it because they have a base that they got to get into.
Okay. Thank you.
Foundation aid rate is, the biggest driver is the property tax values.
Mhm.
And then you have the multipliers, the number of students that are enrolled. And then there's other, it's truly like a Wall Street formula.
It's a real
Yes.
complicated, with all sorts of
It is.
criteria,
There's an equalization rate based on,
components.
yeah. But when it all gets condensed, then
very good for us.
it's not particularly. And I have that lens coming from San Francisco Falls that had very high foundation aid,
Right.
represented 80% of the district's
Wow. Interesting.
wealth.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
a little bit different.
Dana, what's the end of the school's fiscal
June 30th.
year?
So moving on, look at our expenditures. Again, just under 93% has come in, $19.2 million. And it's the same thing, we still had outstanding bills. In fact, we just got our invoice today to pay. That was dated back in April. So there are some vendors out there that aren't necessarily timely in submitting their invoices so that we can actually then pay them. That's one component. When we make any payments, is we need an invoice. We won't just pay them because they say we owe them. We need an actual invoice. So that's ongoing as well. Again, the goal is hopefully by September, but we generally will have things outstanding, and for the audit, we account for those as well. We build in as either carry forward into this current year or accounts payable, knowing that it's going to get paid. And as a result, we account for it. And that kind of, when we look at the unaudited, unassigned fund balance spreadsheets, that's what that encumbrance amount is. That's basically stuff that we've encumbered as an expense, and we just haven't paid it yet, so we do factor that in. So all in all, when you look at it at the end of the year, we were still, in terms of what's projected, what we budgeted, this is saying a surplus of about $805,000. When you look at the unassigned fund balance sheet, it's the third document, you'll see that what I'm saying is it's about $672,000, not $805,000. And the the spreadsheet I provided separate is really more of a real-time shot. When I put this together Thursday, it's as of Thursday. The performance report is as of June 30th. So this is more real-time. It also factors in the encumbrances, which the first report does not. So when you look at that, that's why there's that variation. You factor in what is going to be paid, and that's going to change some more by the time the audit is done as well, because we have revenue that's going to be accounted for. We have some additional expenses that will get accounted for. So hopefully by September or by October, when the audit is complete, those numbers are now all accounted for, and that is why we say this is the unaudited number, not the audited number, but it's going to be in that, around that ballpark.
That's
Well, this is for this one
Yeah,
year,
for this one year.
this current year.
Yeah. But it happens.
We've been fortunate over the last 9 years I've been in this district and last 4 in this position. Yes, we've operated a surplus.
Two questions about the fund balance. Is the fund balance the accumulation of unexpended funds from given fiscal years?
Yes,
Is there a state agency which controls the size of our fund balance, limited in some way?
yes, the state tells us we can, 4% is the number.
Okay.
When I was putting together this spreadsheet, I actually went back to, when you look at it, the $3.92 million unassigned fund balance. I took that right off the audits that was presented back in October. So that's the number that we used, and we were sitting at about 19%. Part of that is.
But we weren't the only people in the
Correct.
state because of COVID, we weren't
Right.
having the expenses that
2 years of COVID, really, 2 years ago, we had a surplus of about 1.2 million dollars. You know, where we kind of shut down, basically. So when we factor in 2 years of really, we have to budget for a normal year.
Of course,
But then when it doesn't
you
happen,
didn't spend it.
right, I think the following year was like 900,000, and that last year was $900,000.
I see.
So just in those 2 years alone is why, and that's where we looked at in the public approved that repair reserve. fund.
Yeah.
So what I'm seeing is we're gonna be able to fully fund the $1 million out of it. That will then become restricted. So it can only be used for that specific reason. It's not unassigned where we can just use it wherever we want. So $1 million of this will go into that restricted accounts.
That takes it off the fund balance ledger, which is someplace else.
Yes, yeah, and then that way is big ticket items like we had a consultant come in to look at the lights here, and if doing everything that was on the list, it was $750,000. As a ballpark, they're not vendors or anything like that. They're consultants. And they said if we wanted to do everything that was on our wish list for this room for lights, it's going to be $750,000. Okay. Not saying we're going to do that because that would wipe out our whole repair reserve.
Will there be anything being left in this unassigned fund balance, even if it's a temporary fix 2 years from now, when you anticipate having those issues that we just talked about? The tax cap, will there be anything initially left there to get us through that kind of scary period that you mentioned 2 years from now?
Projecting out, I mean, when you look at having a $600,000 fund balance this year, I would say yes, 2 years, 3 years, I would say we should be still okay. I mean, unless the state drops out and they, like back in 2008, where they put on, they put on the brakes in terms of state aid, created, we only get about $3 to $4 million in state aid, but when that, drops, that does factor in, because then you throw in the cap and, inflation. So if things remain where the state is still giving us, say, a 3% increase or even not a decrease, yes. One of the things these numbers don't show, because, it would add another piece of paper, is when you look at the last year's budget, we budgeted, if I can remember, $400 and some thousand from the unassigned fund balance to use as revenue. These numbers right now, as you see them, do not factor that in. So we didn't have to, at this point in time, touch the unassigned fund balance that we budgeted for. What you're seeing here, these are actuals. This is what we actually have brought in revenue-wise. This is what we've actually expensed. So $400,000 that we thought we would need, we won't need.
And this doesn't, we haven't removed that building fund or maintenance fund.
Right, and those numbers don't even, well, it does appear in the $3.2 million because that's our unassigned fund.
We're gonna take the million.
We'll take $1 million out of that, plus you got the $600,000. So really, the fully funded will be pulling about $400,000 out of the 3.2 to fully fund that as well. Questions on the performance update as well as the unaudited fund balance?
I'm here.
Just have the treasury report.
So the Treasury Report, and kind of will tie to the, we'll focus on, there's additional repair restricted funds in there that you see that we keep in there, and they're separate from our operating accounts. That's the Evlar, a little over $900,000, the tax reserve of $375,000, unemployment reserve $388,000. What is not in here, because we account for it differently, there's $100,000 for the teacher's retirement system as a restricted account. So that basically what that means is if we needed to tap into these reserves for that purpose, we can. A number of years, about 10 years ago, they created the tax reserve out of basically, I think it was White-Based Lodge, disputed
White-Based
taxes. The district had to pay something like $800,000. When the district didn't have that money, we took out of bonds. We just paid that bond out, by the way. So we're done on paying on that. But this brought about adding this repair in this reserve account in case those things come up.
So that brings up this question. Is that amount that you put in every fiscal year, is that amount 375?
This is
Or
what's
it
there
carries
right
forward?
now. Yeah, it carries forward. It's basically separate from our operating accounts. So unless we take money from that, that's going to be the number. And these are the numbers that have been that way for the last 4 years. We haven't added to it. We haven't taken from it. They're basically, in case of.
Well,
Yeah.
because of the White-Based Lodge case, the town developed a policy to settle all tax certiorari cases where there are no refunds. So what they do is they settle a case where the prospective assessment is that much lower to give the petitioner that which he or she would have received had they gotten a refund. And that's been working really well, and that will continue probably to be the policy of the town. So that's good for the school.
And generally we get every year we get notifications and stuff
Did
from
you get survey of the day?
owners, and we mark it and we track it, but until we get a court order or the
Right.
county says, oh, by the way, you need to.
Right.
like,
That's
last
why we
2
didn't get
years.
any last year.
Yeah, I mean, you won't be getting
Yeah.
it for quite a while.
Yeah,
We
You know,
we just settled the Outlook Shopping Center. That was 7 years with no refunds, so that's good for the school.
in the end, we address it as it comes up, and generally speaking, what we've seen over the last few years is, $1,000 here, a couple $100 there. They're not major, where we can absorb it actually in the normal budget and don't even have to touch the repair.
I see. Okay.
But the
Thank you.
Treasury report, is pretty straightforward. We're still pretty healthy, $11 million in cash sweep. So we're, very good, in terms of on hand, which really helps us a lot going into the fall, the next year. We are, in a very good spot where we don't have to take out basically loans to cover the expenses at the beginning of the year until property taxes start to kick in. We have enough, we'll call it cash on hand, that we can get through that until we start generating our revenue for the current year. So, and that's years of being fiscally prudent, the last 12, 15 years. Leonard before me and put in some good measures to ensure that's the case. Questions on the treasury report?
One more.
Sure.
I see the bond anticipation note principal and interest payment. Will that convert to a long-term payout over time?
Yes, it did at the end of June.
Oh, it did.
So that's, what you'll see is, I'm trying to think with the onboarding documents, there's a page in there that talks about our debt. I'm pretty sure that's updated. The bond will be, it's about $14.6 million. So we'll be paying that over 15 years.
Okay.
Yes, so, I'm trying to, we're gonna be paying a little over $1 million a year on the new capital projects.
Okay.
Great questions? Any other questions?
Good here.
Thank you very much, Dan. And moving on to the superintendent's report.
Okay, so a lot happening and a lot being planned in the next couple of weeks. I think one of the things I'd share with the board right off is that I'm not that far removed from the classroom as an administrator. And one of the barriers to leaving the classroom and joining administration is that sense that we have an opportunity to impact students the same way you would in the classroom. And I'm excited that after a year in the district now, I'm starting to see the fruits of the planning and preparation done by the board and the administrative team in a way that is going to impact students positively in numerous ways. So all of our tech purchases have come in. There are boards like these that are nearly finalized in installation in both buildings that are going to make the classroom more innovative for the students. We have new Chromebooks that have arrived. We have a new shed on the Oval. Location still trying to sort that out, but that shed is there so that our kids can go out and have gym class on the Oval and not have to haul archery targets, back and forth. So it's just little things like that. Just make me happy to know that we're impacting kids positively, even if none of us are in the classroom still. But there's a lot more. Dana's working on, finalizing quotes to have a new installation for a fence around the new elementary playground. We have a new workspace that we've created in the central office, which will house the voting machines securely. So our Bobby Graham and our crew here at the middle high school have studded up a new wall in the area and allowed a workspace to come to fruition for our tech team and our new community school director. We're securing our technology in that space as well as we make purchases. And then those are some of the tangibles, but we're also enacting new policies that are going to benefit students too. I say policies loosely in the sense they're more protocols, they're not board policies. But we do have a revised protocol for students where they will be assigned a new Chromebook when they enter high school that will follow them through the duration of their years. And then when they graduate, they'll have the opportunity to purchase the Chromebook at a very reduced rate. So it's really a nominal amount, and we will be excising them within a year anyways, but it's a chance for students to go out the door with one extra tool. So we're going to be piloting that. We're excited for that. And then, of course, there are the visions and ideas that we seek to promote to better the lives of students. And after 2 full days of training with our new department leaders and our administrative team, we distilled what we hope the essence of the year will be as a district and as a staff of what we want to promote for families and students, and that is the theme of engagement. We want our students to be engaged in their learning, excited. Doug, I see you here and I think about everything that Ellen did, and even upon graduation, there's exhibits at the Wild Center, that are indicative of the level of engagement that she and Astrid and other students brought forth. And I want that sentiment to permeate our institution. So you're going to hear a lot about that throughout the year. Each department is going to be focusing on ways, distilling a single way to measure the engagement of students, see where we are and see where we can end up, and then lean into those things that we can measure as successful and utilize them to a greater degree in the district. But also engagement in a sense of pride in the district. And I think there's a pervasive sense of pride in the district, but it's the little things, like when you walk into here, you may have noticed that the gardening beds have been redone. And I had a teacher when I was student teaching 20 years ago, who was a history teacher, very knowledgeable. And I said to him after my first lesson sitting in, oh my God, I'm never going to know half of what you know. I mean, it's amazing. I said, how do you do it? And he said, well, I have the best job in the world as a teacher because anytime I don't know something, I just look it up. And then over the course of a career, I get this. So, but at the time I was like, well, that's such a simple sentiment, but that's the philosophy I want everyone to have in their roles in the district. Like, if you see something that doesn't meet our level of expectation or aesthetic or quality, then everyone should make effort to fix it. And over time, this place will shine to an even greater degree. So I want everyone to be engaged, from our bus drivers, our students, our maintenance workers, everyone. So that's exciting. When we look at the calendar, we do have some dates that are going to be coming up that will be impactful for the district. So on August 11th, we'll have the final strategic planning session of our core team. The result of that effort will be revised goals, mission, and vision statements, which will be presented to the board, likely at the second meeting in September. As we move further through the calendar, on August 23rd, we have the new hire orientation. I, being just my second year in the district, have seen this done in other places, and I was just extremely impressed at the level of quality at our new hire orientation. So if anyone's unfamiliar, the new teachers and employees of the district come in, there's manuals for them on all things about district protocol and expectations. There's different speakers throughout the group. We go to a nice lunch. Last year was at the cottage. We take a tour of the communities of Wilmington and Lake Placid in the bus. And it's just a really nice thing. So August 23rd, that's taking place. August 24th is the middle high school locker day. And so that'd be an opportunity for families to come in and kind of have a soft opening and meet the new teachers and get the schedule and open their lockers and things like that. And then, and I'll put this on everyone's radar here, August 31st is the first day of school for staff. And traditionally, the board, if they've been able to attend, have attended the morning of the first day of school. So there's kind of a kickoff that I do with the staff that the board president, Dan, will do. And so all the board members are invited to come if they're available and so inclined. And that schedule will be forthcoming certainly by the next meeting. And then we'll have 2 days of training for our staff. They'll be led by our department leaders on that theme of engagement. We'll start that work out of the gate. And then September 2nd will be the first day of school for students. So lots of exciting dates coming down the pipeline. And then just last but not least, in terms of some of the deliverables that we're looking at over the summer, one of them is to create what's called a matrix for our code of conduct. And that's just a really linear document where any student, parent, or staff member could visually see that if some sort of breach in the code of conduct occurs, then this is it's a visual, it's the appropriate response with relation to that breach. So there's no ambiguity, there's no gray. Every action has a reaction. If there is a breach of the code of conduct, there is a consequence that is well known and promulgated.
Due process.
Due process. Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. So we'll be working on that and look forward to that work. And just as a final note, the last couple of days, the admin team has been participating in training with over 30 districts around the North Country, as south as Albany, as far west as Syracuse, and as far east as Rouse's Point, our little region here. And the keynote speaker gave a wonderful speech to everyone, and they talked at length about the work that we are doing. And it turns out the keynote speaker for this event, I was watching my administrative colleagues from all these different schools watching the speaker, and they were nodding their head and writing things down and like, yeah, we need to get that going and start making a plan for that. And I looked at our team and I was really pleased because it's the same people we just worked with 2 weeks before. And so we have a great path, we're ahead of the game, if you will. So very excited about that work. And that culminates tomorrow, this conference training at the High Peaks Lodge. And the Commissioner of Education will be being our guest at that training. So Dr. Betty Rosa will be here to talk to the admin team. So all told, lots of good dates, lots of good planning, and lots of good developments. That's my report.
That's great.
Any questions? All right, next up is information for the board. There's a link there for the NISBA convention. I guess ask Karen if you have questions.
We should make a decision as to if people want to go and then decide how many will approve to go, probably in the August meeting. And then people can say if they want to go. And I'll sign them up because you have to do it through this link. And we have to do it early when it opens to get housing.
Okay, well, I would say if anyone has interest in attending that in person, email the group and then we can kind of take that into the next meeting, discuss it, see if there's interest in. There's also some good, did you pass like the links to all like the new board member training sessions and stuff that NISBA has? I did like one on budgeting.
So I've already signed Colleen and Ron up for their training.
That will explain a lot about why a lot of the laws exist, like the fund balance limit. Was because somebody walked off with a whole lot of fund balance.
That's what happened with laws in response to some infraction.
Yeah, any of the financial laws that don't make sense, you take that course, you go,
Oh, yeah.
oh,
That's
yeah,
what
okay,
happened.
yeah, that's why that exists.
I like that happening again.
Yeah. Okay, and then there's some executive content about the school building safety committee. Reading enjoyment.
We bring that up the next meeting.
I think,
Or something to vote on.
The assigning of committees.
yeah, I think so. I think that there's also some things that we don't have to change the policy, right? It's just
The policy as written doesn't need to change.
Yeah.
The document which outlines, which we looked at yesterday, last meeting, which outlines the role and protocols of those committees, that should change for our records. But if the board is in agreement and shifting the focus of that committee purely to before, during, and after a building condition survey, then data can continue to apprise the board of all of the developments on a monthly basis.
so 6A was in the consent agenda. That's 5. I'm sorry. Board goals, discussion, board goals and objectives. There's a link there. You can see that in board docs. Also, Karen emailed us a printout of it or PDF of it, so you can print that out and make.
Yeah, and
School
it's
notes
actually
if
in
you
the Google Docs.
And it's
So-
in the Google Docs. as well.
Right, so you can go right in and you can start making suggestions in there.
And I think there already are some.
I didn't see any.
No? Is it in the
And
document?
when's that due, Karen? When are we supposed to put our last little?
So we should approve those in September.
Okay.
So yeah, so if everyone can go, I think the Google Doc would probably be the best way for everybody to get their input in there. We can make changes direct to the document. So you'll spend some time over the next couple of weeks doing that, and then we will have what we need by.
So this is on the mission statements that we're going to.
No, it's
No.
actually, it's the Google Doc. It has all the goals and objectives.
Goals and objectives.
We kind of have two parallel tracks right now. We have the many year strategic plan that will be lapsing, but the board is going to base their goals around that plan and simultaneously folding in over the next year the new strategic.
Can you, would it be possible just to send that link out again to everybody?
Absolutely.
We'll get a fresh.
Yeah, and
I'm not
probably
telling
in the September or the November, we won't have one late in August, the board meeting.
Mhm.
But maybe, don't we usually in the first meeting in September, do like an actual work, we talk about it and like,
I remember talking about it. So
yeah, so we'll do that in
We'll plan on
September, and then the second board meeting in September, we can adopt it.
Okay. Any other questions about the board goals or those? Okay. 6A was in the consent agenda. Moves us on to 7 personnel. The first one, 7A, the recommended action is upon recommendation of the superintendent, approve fall coaches and volunteer assistants for the fall 2022 season as noted below. So you see a list of all those positions there. Do I have a motion?
Yes.
Dan?
I second it.
Ron, get on the board. Okay, any discussion? As always, I would just like to say a very heartfelt thank you to all the people that volunteer a lot more time than their stipend pays them back for, enriching the lives of our students. We have a lot of great coaches and we're very proud of them.
Well stated. Agreed.
How do we determine the salaries for the head coach versus the assistant coach, and is it kind of across the board? I've noticed in other districts, some are more, some are less. How do we come to this figure? Is it based on the number of days that they're coaching or the length of the season? How are these salaries approached?
They're in the LPA contract, so it's negotiated.
Okay.
I think a number of years ago, the districts decided to, for each season, make each level uniform. So all varsity coaches get, in this case, this 5,300. So you might see differences between seasons based off of that because of the length, everything that you just mentioned.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
We don't tie it to victories or anything. Like
No.
There's something
That's probably a good plan.
Right, even if the state final, you work longer, you don't get paid more.
That's true, yeah, that's true. Okay, everybody vote there? Or any more discussion?
6 yes.
6 yes, motion passes. Thank you very much, everyone. 7B, teaching assistant resignation. Upon recommendation of the superintendent, accept the resignation of Marjorie Watterson, teaching assistant effective July 15th, 2022. Do I have a motion?
Yes.
Colleen and Joan, second. Any
Was
discussion?
that Colleen Law?
Yes, Colleen.
Thank you. Your guys aren't sitting next to each other.
We're sitting next to each other in day 1 and day 2.
It is most effective. Any discussion there?
Six yes.
6 yes, motion carries. She missed. Teaching staff appointments, 7C, upon recommendation of the superintendent, appoint Rhiannon Berry, professional certification in English language arts, 712, to the position of ELA teacher in the middle high school, replacing John Mullane in the tenure area of English language arts beginning August 31, 2022, and tentatively scheduled to conclude in 4 years in August 30th, 2026. Tenure may be reduced to 3 years with confirmation of tenure in another district. For the 2022-2023 school year, salary will be $57,867.43. Step 12, MA plus 40 of the Lake Placid Education Association negotiated agreement, July 1. Do I have a motion? Oh, Joan, we have a second. Colleen, too. Hey, any discussion?
I would just say that Ms. Berry is a Lemoyne graduate, many years of experience in the Syracuse City School District, then moved to Lake Placid area, and it'll bring tremendous benefit.
Strong GPA.
Okay, everyone will vote.
6 yes.
Motion carries. Welcome, Ms. Berry. 7D, long-term teaching staff appointment, recommended action upon the recommendation of the superintendent. Michelle Minot is hereby appointed to the long-term position of special education teacher in the middle and high school, replacing Emily McCombie beginning August 31, 2022 through November 22, 2022. Salary will be in accordance with Article 23B1 of the negotiated agreement of the LPEA dated July 1. This service will not be credited towards tenure. Do I have a motion?
Yes.
Yes.
Colleen, 1 and
Perfect.
2. Any discussion?
Just for context, Ms. McCombie is going to be having a child soon. Will be out on maternity leave. And Ms. Minot has filled in similar roles for us and will do a wonderful job. Great.
We're lucky to have that deep bench to pull upon when we need it. And congratulations to Ms. McCombie. Another student for the district there.
Right. 6 yes.
Okay, motion carries 6 yes. 7E, food service director resignation. Recommended action upon recommendation of the superintendent, accept the resignation of Ruth Green as food service director / cook manager effective July 29, 2022. Do I have a motion?
Yes.
Dan, second.
Second.
Ron. Any discussion?
Well, that's unfortunate. That we're looking for someone yet again. Seems to be the roller coaster of the summer. I do have a question though. We seem to waver between doing consent agenda for the list of personnel, at one meeting, and then the next meeting we go through each list. Is there something that we can't go back to the other method of putting it under consent and then pulling one out if we need to discuss it?
I think that's probably a presidential problem.
No,
Oh,
no.
Oh,
No,
sweet.
I did it. I did it because the only thing that we had when I started it was the fall coaches, and in the
Okay.
past, there's been questions. So
Okay.
then when we added the other
Okay.
stuff, because
Okay.
it wasn't
Okay.
ahead of time, that's why I did it the way I
I'll
did
just
it.
weigh in on it. I feel that we should put as little in the consent agenda as possible, in case people want to hear what we're doing and listen to it and be involved. That's just my personal.
Okay, any other discussion? Please vote.
Dana, is there personnel issues or something going on in the kitchen area? Looking for somebody.
Is there too much heat in the kitchen?
I'll say yes to everything. Well, in this case, she took a job, she's taking a job at Hospice College. And that's where her experience was at the college level in food service. So, she indicated that was kind of where her heart was, and the opportunity came up. Unfortunate for us, 2 food service directors in less than a year.
Not counting yourself.
What's that?
Not counting yourself.
Not counting myself, that's true. That's right.
Yes.
I guess you just can't get away from it falling back on the meeting from the title. We're already moving ahead and trying to look at, maybe we need to change the position and hopefully attracts some additional candidates. So throughout feelers in terms of what other school districts do for format and structure, and threw out some ideas to Tim already in terms of going forward. Give us the potential, and obviously, salary is part of that. I mean, we're in that world right now, so looking at how we eventually increase the salary of this position, the position that the board of the last couple of years has really said yes, we want to invest in it and really have a strong food service program. So that was definitely at the forefront of a potential change there. So we have an increase in salary.
Have we lost any positions here? Maybe more so CSEA staff. I'm just, a lot of times when I go even down Main Street or up Saranac Avenue, we're in a situation now where even room cleaners at some of the small motels, they're paying $20 an hour for room cleaners. And I'm wondering eventually if that will impact us here in some of those categories where are we paying enough to be able to get people in the door, or are we losing them to the small motels on Saranac Avenue, to the miniature golf that's paying teenagers $18, $19 an hour to sit at the putt-putt desk? I mean, are we keeping up with the fact that unfortunately the salaries keep going up for those other types of positions? I don't know.
Good question.
I think we'd have to address it eventually, but the good news is, at least with CSCA for positions, benefit package is
That's what I was gonna say.
very,
Young
very
people may not realize that.
yeah.
No, it's
Yeah,
just,
but-
it's tough. I don't know. It's just,
But and yes, we have addressed it. Some of this is a perfect example where, that might not have changed through staying. However, it definitely would be a factor in terms of potentially bringing in some quality candidates, because the salary is more than just competitive. If you look at it, I think if you look around at other districts, our CSEA contracts have typically been better than other districts, but we're trying to compete. And, yeah, we do take that into consideration.
okay,
Absolutely.
thank you.
Okay. That would be
6 yes.
6 yes, motion carries. Thank you, Reverend Goodall. 8A and B are under the consent agenda. That brings us to for the good of the cause. Do we have any other invitations or any other comments?
Nope.
No? All right. That brings us to the adjournment phase. Next meeting date and location is in there, August 9th. Are we going to try to do that in here again, or are we going to?
That's why I left that blank. It's up to you all.
How do you guys feel?
Since I'm the one that brought the whole idea up, I'll be the first to admit that the one thing I don't like about the room is the table configuration, because I'm someone that when someone's talking, I like to be able to see, and I'm going back and forth, and Dan number 2 keeps moving back and forth, and I can't see. And so that is my one complaint, is that I don't like the not being able to see the person when they're speaking, so.
So the only thing that's different is like this table is more centered. I could have pulled it out a little bit more.
Well, I'm not saying the same thing with you, Karen. I'm just
No.
saying the way that the tables are in the boardroom are much more conducive to being
Right.
able to see people. And I think maybe we're restricted. I don't know, unless we were up on the stage, but I don't know if that's right. But I'm just saying that, it's kind of one of those things, nothing ventured, nothing gained, but maybe it's not the best thing. But I like to see people when they speak, so.
It is, yeah.
You can watch her on the screen.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I'm trying not to like look at that as much as possible.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm back and forth.
Okay, so why don't we move it?
Do you want to go back to the boardroom, or do you want me to try a little bit of a different configuration? Up
Well, I
to you
think we
guys.
should get a common idea of the whole college try. So let's maybe try a new configuration table.
Sure.
I mean, I think that we could probably go back a little bit
We should put-
and maybe angle those two like this.
Yep,
I
and
mean, it is
try to
a
make them
beautiful
come around.
space.
The beauty
Yeah,
space is
yeah.
beautiful. So we
Or
can
you can get us those rolling podiums, standing desks, and we can all just wander around.
Okay.
solve the eye contact.
Anyway, thanks for all your efforts, Karen.
Thanks,
No
Karen.
worries.
Thank you very much.
dealing with our-
So we'll give it one more try and, or at least one more try.
At least-
Yeah.
We're not giving up on this.
Whenever we move it back to the boardroom, that's when 30 people will show up. So.
That's exactly what's gonna happen.
Uh,
Maybe you should draw the curtains next time.
Well, there you go.
Is it looking there?
Yeah, the curtain's closed.
Just that-
We'll get it right.
The staging effect.
That's the aesthetic piece you're talking about.
Yeah.
All right, good.
Okay, 10B, old business topics. The old
I just have the board retreat in there.
board tree.
Alan touched on that a little.
Yeah, I did.
Okay. New business topics. And recommended action is the motion to adjourn the meeting.
So be it.
Joan
Second.
and Colleen won. I did, thank you. Nothing caught on fire, so like this is
Pretty good.
It's no one goal.
Unanimous, correct?
Unanimous.
Yes,
Aye.
oh yes, everyone votes. We didn't vote on it. All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Right.
Yes.
I know that. one of my jobs.
Doug,
Job.
do you know how to go on,
Thanks, everybody.
on the,